Welcome, Buffy and Sarah. Thank you so much for doing our motherhood class today, and I am going to leave you to it and mute myself. If anybody has any questions throughout or comments, can you please put them in the chat down the bottom, and we will do our best to answer them throughout the class and at the end. And at the end, we will unmute everybody and have a little discussion. So enjoy.
Okay, hey, thanks Amy, and hi everyone. So nice to see so many of your faces. And if you don't have your video on, please turn it on, because it's really so nice for us to be talking to your faces rather than just screens. It's a real treat, especially in the current environment. So today we are talking about a topic that is one that is really close to my heart, and I know it's really close to Sarah's heart as well, coming from two different angles, I think. So I'm Buffy, for those of you who I haven't met before. I think I've pretty much met everyone here. I'm a naturopath and nutritionist by training, but I'm also a mum to two little kids. And I had quite a difficult journey to getting my two kiddies. So I was diagnosed with Graves' disease about 8 years ago, which is an autoimmune condition. And one of the outcomes of that is that your menstrual cycles stop, so you stop ovulating. Basically the brain stops sending the signal down to the ovaries to release eggs each month. So I ended up having to go through IVF for my two babies, and they definitely weren't a first hit wonder either. So I had quite a few failed cycles before I got my two babies. And so I, from that experience, feel really intimately connected with women who are struggling with infertility, but then also how absolutely precious and amazing and magic that it is to actually, to get pregnant, to have a baby, a healthy baby, and then, the magic that then happens after that. Along with the circus, especially right now, because childcare, it's really killing me. But no, I love them to absolute bits, and so I really, really love this topic, and I'm so honoured to be joined by my good friend Sarah Thorn. She is a midwife down in Tauranga, the Mount. She's got a lot of experience, and she's very, very focused on using natural therapies, natural remedies, and in particular essential oils with her clients, with her ladies, with her mums to be, through their pregnancy and then also postpartum as well. So I'm really excited that she's going to be able to share all of that experience with you today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through basically the phases. So firstly, we're going to talk through fertility and what things you can do to support yourself to enhance your own fertility. Then we're going to talk about pregnancy and what you can do to support yourself through pregnancy. Through the actual birthing process, and then postpartum as well, because I was reading a little book last night, which we'll talk to as well. This is a really great book if you want to learn more. It's called Essential Oils for Pregnancy, Birth and Babies, and it's got a bit more detail. If you enjoy the chat today, then you probably will enjoy this book, especially if you are trying to get pregnant or are currently pregnant. You might find this quite helpful. But you have this baby inside you for 9 months, and then they come out, and it's this sort of weird time where they've been there the whole time, but you haven't seen them, and now they're out. I feel like those next 3, 6, 9 months are just as precious. It's just that now that you can see their face rather than being inside you. So hopefully you will learn lots today. I'm now going to hand over to Sarah, and she's going to run you through some of her thoughts on this topic, and then we'll just tag team as we go, because some of the areas are sort of a bit more my specialty, but a lot of it is hers. So Sarah, I will hand over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I see some familiar faces on here, so hi everybody that I haven't seen for a little while. I don't know about you, Buffy, but do you want to start from the beginning and start with fertility, and then I can just kind of jump in with some ideas on that, and then we can delve more into the pregnancy stuff, which is kind of more my specialty?
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great. So ladies, when it comes to fertility or infertility, there are lots of things that can be going on. One thing that I would firstly recommend is really assessing your diet and what you're putting into your body. what we put in our food is basically like medicine. You know, the old adage, let food be thy medicine, but it really is true. And I didn't quite click to me until I realized that when we take medication via the oral route, via the mouth, we are literally absorbing it through the exact same pathway. So if you think about it, if you had a headache and you were to take a Panadol or a Nurofen or a Tramadol, you're putting it in your mouth, swallowing it, and somehow miraculously 20 minutes later your headache goes away. Well, how is that? Because all that happened is it actually just went through your esophagus down into your gut and got absorbed into the cell walls. Well, in the very same way, if you are eating, let's say, a plate of KFC, and we've all been there, trust me, we have all been there. But if you're eating a plate of KFC, you're doing the exact same thing. You're putting it into your mouth. It's being absorbed through it's traveling down the esophagus, going into your gut, and then being absorbed in the cell wall. So in the exact same way as the components from the Panadol are being absorbed into our bloodstream and actually having action out at our organs, in particular our reproductive system, our endocrine system. In the exact same way, when we eat food, it's being absorbed through the gut wall into the bloodstream and having an effect out at our organs. So if you think about, I find that analogy really, really helpful to realize that what I'm actually putting in my mouth is like a low grade medication. The only difference being that you're eating it, 3, 4, 5, 6 times per day, and that it is somewhat less strong than a medication, but you're having it a lot. So diet is really, really important. I always like to think about focusing on more of what I call the top 5 and less of the bottom 5. It's not about eliminating the bottom at all, and it's not about trying to achieve some perfect diet, because there isn't a perfect diet. And I think it's particularly when us women try and obsess over and reach towards achieving some image of perfection, that's when we go wrong, right? Because as soon as the almond croissants, which we were talking about in the chat, as soon as the almond croissants come out, which are delicious and an enjoyable thing to have, if you're on some pursuit of perfection, and that's going to throw you off the course, and then there's a whole lot of repercussions that come from that in terms of like feeling guilty, and it ends up becoming a cycle which can get quite damaging in itself. So having more of the top 5. So the top 5 are vegetables. Woohoo! You can't ever go wrong with eating more veggies. Veggies are so full of vitamins, minerals, coenzymes, antioxidants. They are naturally low in calorie. They're high in fiber. They are so good for our gut health. They're so good for our immunity. They're good for our skin. There's not a bad thing you can say about a veggie. You cannot go wrong with veggies. So veggies are number 1. Just getting more veggies in wherever you can. Fruits are great. Nuts and seeds, legumes, and whole grains. So more of those 5: vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, legumes, and whole grains. And then when you're bringing in more of those 5, you're naturally going to be pushing out less of the bottom 5, which would be all the fun stuff. So sugar, alcohol, meat, dairy, and processed foods. Sugar, alcohol, meat, dairy, and processed foods. So again, it's not about not having any of those, because all of us want to have a glass of wine or a slice of chocolate cake or all those good things. It's just making more space for the other 5. And so naturally, the lower 5 will take up less of your diet. So that is the big number 1 for fertility, is addressing your nutrition. The second one is addressing the toxins in your environment. So this is something where essential oils are really, really helpful. There are a lot of xenoestrogens in our environment through our cleaning products, through our skincare. It's actually like unbelievable how many chemicals are in skincare that are known carcinogens and are known to disrupt the endocrine system. So if we're disrupting the endocrine system, our hormones aren't functioning properly and we can't get pregnant. So the second thing I would do after looking at your diet and trying to improve some things there is to eliminate all the toxins from your home, and using your essential oils is the best way you can do that. So when I went through this process myself, I just outsourced everything to EcoStore, because doing a DIY home cleaner was like, no way. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. So we just changed all of our products slowly over time to using natural products like EcoStore. Now I've moved one step further and actually starting to make a few of my own products. And we do actually have a workshop on that this Saturday at 11. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, you can come along to that. We've also got lots of tips and tricks in Oil Camp if you haven't done that yet. So removing the toxins from your home, and then also just trying to reduce the amount of toxin exposure you get from elsewhere. So for example, not heating your food in plastic takeaway containers, which honestly, I mean, growing up, we must have heated, I would say like 5 out of 7 dinners per week got heated up in the microwave in a plastic takeaway container. So don't do that because these xenoestrogens from the plastic leach out into your food. And again, that can cause disruption to the endocrine system. Also just when you're out and about. So in particular, if you're focused on fertility, if you're going to it might be a good idea maybe to get your partner to fill up the car rather than you necessarily filling up the car with petrol, or even if you are filling up the car with petrol, don't stand by the pump for 20 minutes inhaling all the fumes, because there are a lot of toxins in petrol that can disrupt the female endocrine system as well. The third thing, so we've got diet, toxins in the environment, and the third thing would be stress. So trying to reduce your stress levels wherever you can. And this is like the never-ending sort of pursuit, right, is trying to reduce all of our stress levels. But certainly essential oils are an absolutely amazing way that you can do this. Some of the ones that I love using from the top 10, which I'm sure all of you, well, I think most of you have got, are definitely lavender, frankincense, and easier. So all three are really, really calming for the nervous system. Those would be my top 3 for calming the nervous system, which is absolutely essential to have your hormones functioning well. So in this current, no, darling, you have to go talk to Daddy now, okay? Tone. Sorry, guys. Motherhood. It's real. Out, my sweet girl. No, because I'm recording. We're recording, my darling. Okay. Okay. Where was I? Sorry about that, guys. This is
stress.
Level 4 lockdown, not necessarily the biggest fan, but that's okay. We are working with it. Okay. Toxins in our environment, diet, stress. Okay, stress. So lavender, frankincense, easier. Other ones that I really, really love are Copaiba. It's really brilliant for calming the nervous system. Adaptive, which you can get from the US. It's a blend of adaptogenic herbs. Also, the mood management kit and the emotional aromatherapy oils. So there's 4, you can find them online, but those are also really, really good for just keeping stress levels at bay. And I would just be using, I use my oils all the time. At the moment, I'm rocking out, it felt cold today, so I'm rocking out this little special guy, Harvest Spice. It's warming, it's cozy. It's actually got some ingredients in there which are quite good for supporting the immune system. But using your oils all the time in the diffuser and then also topically is really good to support your stress. And then the last thing would be supporting yourself with some whole food, good quality whole food supplementation. And we talked about this a couple of workshops ago, but when it comes to supplements, I started off being very, very skeptical about supplements and do we really need those? And that's a waste of money. And when I was doing my naturopathy degree, I thought, well, the whole point of me doing this is to try and encourage people to support themselves through natural whole foods. So why do I want people spending a whole lot of money on popping pills when we're trying to get them off medication? So I did go through my whole final year, clinical year of my degree, not prescribing a single supplement to a client. I only used food and herbal liquid herbs. But what I realized when I actually started my practice was that it was really, really hard to get women back to where they needed to be, and men where they needed to be, just using those methods, particularly if they are really, really deficient in some areas already. And so what I find with supplementation is that it really helps to lift you up and lift some of your levels up that may be really depleted, and they could be depleted because of diet, because of your upbringing, because of, again, all those things I talked about, toxins in your environment. Could also be depleted because nutrients in our food supply now are a lot lower than what they used to be, and the reason for that is because most food is grown in a monoculture type way. So instead of the old school farming where you'd plant silver beet and then you'd pull them out, and now you'd do pumpkins and you pull them out, and now it's time to do tomatoes because it's summer. That happens in your home garden, right? But it doesn't happen with the produce that turns up in our supermarkets. Those are all monocropped, generally, virtually always, and which means that they're planting silver beet and then clearing it, silver beet and then clearing it, silver beet and then clearing it. And so over time, over many, many years of doing that, the nutrients are sucked out of the soil, and you don't get the added nutrients that would have come from the pumpkins coming in there and the tomatoes coming in there the rest of the year. And so what the farmers end up having to do is putting nutrients back into the soil to try and recreate that environment. The long short of it is that what we're now eating, and you can tell this if you take a conventional orange and you eat that from the supermarket versus like an organic orange from your dad's tree or granddad's tree. The one from granddad's tree is small, it's dark orange, it kind of looks ugly, but when you cut inside, oh my, it's like the color is really like deep, the flavor is really rich. In contrast, if you get a good old Valencia or an orange from the supermarket, from traditional supermarket, it's a non-organic type. It's big, it looks beautiful, but when you cut inside, it's not necessarily as super flavorsome as your organic one. And that is a direct reflection of the vitamins and minerals which are in that piece of produce. So again, that's another reason why having some good quality supplementation is really, really important, to make sure you're not deficient in any one level. And then the last reason why supplements are important is that as we age, and unfortunately we're all aging, my friends, anyone who's under 30, you're still on the growth path, but over 30, Emma, but once you hit 30, our bodies are starting to decline. So our ability to absorb nutrients, it is starting to decline. Our bone density, it is starting to decline. Our musculature is starting to decline. We're moving towards the end phase after 30. And so our ability to absorb nutrients from our food is much lower than in our teenage years, in our early 20s. Anyone notice how when they were a teenager in their early 20s, they could eat whatever they wanted, party all night, drink whatever, and still totally function? And now that ability is sort of, it's like 2 drinks and you're on the floor. This is because when we're younger, our bodies are much more resilient and able to absorb what they can and what they need from whatever we're giving it. Whereas as we age, we just have to give it a little bit more tender, loving care in terms of what we're putting in. So in terms of an actual fertility regime, and I can email this afterwards as well if you don't remember this, but basically taking Lifelong Vitality, which I really, really love. I really love the vegan version, the plant-based version. It's got a plant-based omega, which I really, really, which is beautiful. So taking that first and foremost, to make sure you fill in any deficiency gaps, particularly also because when you go get a blood test, we can test for certain things, but we can't test for everything. We certainly can't test for the hundreds of vitamins and minerals and coenzymes which are present in that Lifelong Vitality pack. And so it could be any number of just a couple of things that you're slightly low in, which could be impacting your ability to get pregnant. So Lifelong Vitality, firstly, that contains things like folic acid, B12, iron, zinc. Those are really, really important for fertility. When you do actually get pregnant, you still will want to take some extra iodine and folic acid. But outside of that, in terms of the pre-pregnancy stage, the fertility stage, the Lifelong Vitality is fantastic. I then really like boosting your immune health so that you can latch onto the baby, or the baby can latch onto you and hold in place well. And so often one reason that people aren't getting pregnant is because of an immune system which is not quite functioning well. So what we want to do there is firstly do a little bit of a gut cleanse. You're going to be doing this anyway through your diet and from removing toxins from your environment, but then also using some things like oregano. There's actually a supplement called GX Assist, which is a little supplement that you can take into the mouth and swallow, and it goes all the way down into the gut, and that will actually help to cleanse out anything like candida, overgrowth of bacteria, and generally just clean the gut ready. to then repopulate it with good quality bacteria. And you can do this by using a good quality probiotic. I really like using PB Assist. It's a totally dairy-free, broad spectrum probiotic that doTERRA does, but also getting some good quality fermented foods into your diet. So like your sauerkraut, miso, tempeh, tamari, fermented breads like sourdough, kombucha, kefir, that type of thing. So that's to repopulate good bacteria in the gut. And generally you would do a gut cleanse in the first half of the month, and then boost with probiotics in this and fermented foods in the second half of the month. So, because hopefully you were wanting to help with implantation. What can happen is if the immune system is overactive, so this was the case with me with Graves' disease, then when the egg and the sperm meet and the baby tries to latch on, the body actually goes, oh my gosh, it's a foreign body. Like it's something foreign. If you've got an overactive immune system, let's get rid of it. And so that's what happens with a woman who might be ovulating fine, or even they're doing IVF and they're getting an egg and they're getting it reinserted back in, but then it doesn't maintain for that second half of the month. It doesn't latch onto the inside of the lining because the immune system rejects it. So what we actually want to do is, in a way, almost modulate / suppress, calm the immune system, especially through that second half of the cycle. And so conventional medicine actually does this in a different way. They give you immune suppressant drugs. And if you're doing this is one of the different types of IVF you can have done, but they essentially follow the same principle where they suppress the immune system after implantation so that the body doesn't reject the embryo. But what we want to do is we can do the same thing with natural therapies as well. So boost the immune system, have it really nice and strong, but not overactive. And a probiotic is not going to make your immune system overactive, so that we maintain that little baby and allow it to latch on. The other thing, things I really love for fertility is Claricalm, which is a blend of hormone modulating, hormone balancing herbs. You can use that throughout the whole fertility period. So that is a roller that you would put on your uterus, on the soles of the feet, and on the back of your neck, at least once a day, if not twice a day. That's really good for balancing estrogen and progesterone, not just for fertility, but also if you're experiencing like PMS, polycystic ovaries, any sort of hormonal imbalance, actually right through to menopause. And then the other thing that can be helpful is if you have problems with estrogen, it can be, and this can be high levels of estrogen or low levels of estrogen, it can be helpful to use some sort of plant-based estrogen complex, both in terms of your food, but in terms of a supplement as well, to help to excrete bad estrogen and rebalance your natural levels of estrogen. That's one that I do a little bit more bespoke to the female, because estrogen is quite a tender thing. So we don't want to be introducing too many excess external estrogens. It's a very fine balance, trying to get that estrogen balance right. But that's probably like the last thing that I would potentially add in with someone. So those are all my tips on fertility. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that in particular that you've recommended to women?
No, I think you've pretty much covered everything. No, I think the book that you talked about, this one, which is like my little go-to as well, that does have a really good protocol in it, which I think is quite similar to what you've said, but also has some rollable stuff, you can make with different oils to support that internal protocol as well. So that might be worth looking into if that's the stage of your life you're into. I did some reading last night, and it said I don't know what your information is or knowledge is on using fennel in fertility or regulating cycles as well, but that's something that came up a couple of times too. So maybe adding that into regime too.
Okay, yeah. I haven't. I've only used it in the breastfeeding stage, but that's awesome.
So no, I think you've pretty much covered everything else in that one.
Do you want to take us into pregnancy?
Sure, I can take us into pregnancy. So I've been a midwife for 9 years and worked in several different settings, so both the hospital and in the community. And I provide care for women who choose to birth at home, at a birthing centre, or in the hospital. So I'm kind of very familiar with all the different ways that women choose to the routes that women choose to go down in their pregnancy. If people want to go down the conventional medicine, very comfortable in that regime, as well as supporting women down the natural way as well. I'm in no means an expert in natural medicine. That's Buffy's jam, but I certainly have had some experience in supporting women, particularly through labour and birth, or pregnancy and labour and birth, with using essential oils and homeopathy. And I'm more than happy to research stuff and gain more information, so I feel comfortable sharing that those regimes with women. So the one thing I want to talk about first is probably the biggest thing I get asked about essential oils is which ones are safe and which ones to avoid in pregnancy. And I want to highlight here that not all essential oils are the same. So there has been some limited studies, and all of the studies that I've read in practice, I've been using essential oils in my practice for about 5 years, like I say, so I kind of had to get my head around how they worked and what the benefits were before I started offering them to women as an alternative, because I needed to believe in them. And midwifery is kind of very much research-based information, so I needed to understand that concept. Most of the studies that I've read are the one thing that is missing in those studies is it doesn't talk about the purity of oils. So they talk about how they've done some controlled trials where one group of women would be given a essential oil and another group wouldn't, as the control group. And basically the conclusion is they need more research. But like I say, it doesn't talk about the purity. And a lot of those studies as well that I've read have been done or performed on animals. So a lot of them don't actually apply to humans. So I wanted to kind of point that out. The other thing I really want to point out with essential oils in pregnancy and labour and birth is that we're wanting balance, not change. So we're not wanting to go in gung-ho and use something of really high potency, like everybody uses 10 drops of this and 10 mils of fractionated coconut oil, and that's one size fits all. That's not necessarily the case. It's like using conventional medicine, like your analogy before, Buffy, talking about taking a tramadol or a Panadol, and somehow our body knows where to send that, and it takes away a temperature, it takes away a headache, it hurts your sore toe. Essential oils are the same. So for one person might need to take two paracetamol, where one other person might need to take one. So same with oils. We know that people have different thresholds, and it's about finding that therapeutic level. So you can overuse them. We need to respect essential oils. It's not something that we just, like I say, go in and use the maximum dose. It's finding that threshold. So I always start low with women and then build it up if we feel like that needs to happen. The other thing I need to point out here as well is that they are therapeutic, so they do build up in your system. So start slow, build up until you get the therapeutic level, and then you know where you're at. The other good thing about essential oils is obviously they are more targeted, so they're able to rush to the area of your body where it needs to be and work more of a unique and innate biological way. So we can choose whatever we need to use it accordingly, and but what we use for us may not work for everybody else. So for example, everybody talks about clary sage in labour. Clary sage on its own might be amazing for one person, but for the next person they need to add a little bit of myrrh in it as well, or a little bit of frankincense to amplify its use. Or it might be that clary calm works really well for somebody in labour, where it has no effect for others. So it's kind of finding that balance. So it's not, if you think about clary sage in pregnancy, and there's a lot of information out about avoid clary sage in pregnancy, it's not about avoiding it, it's about dimming the light of it. So when Buffy talks about using clary calm, that's a blend. So it's not like gung-ho and saying here's the full potency clary sage and that's going to cause issues in your pregnancy. That's like walking into a room of spotlights. So if you think of walking into a room that's really bright, it's uneasy, it's stressful, it's unsettling on our bodies and our minds and the way we feel emotionally, when we use clary calm, it's like walking into a dim room. So it's more relaxing, it's easier on our body uses it better. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Got a whole heap of blank faces in front of me. So while we talked about the fertility aspect of things, actually, one more thing I want to say is again, about the one size fits all with oils. Yes, oils smell amazing, and most of us are attracted to an oil for whatever reason. And I want you to know that we should use oils innately in pregnancy. So if you like the smell of it, it probably means you need to use it. If you don't like the smell of it, but you know, like you've picked it up or you've chosen that oil because you're wanting to use it for a specific reason. If you don't like the smell of it, don't use it. It means that your body doesn't need that particular oil. Go to the next option or the next option until you find what works with you personally. And that's kind of on like a physical and emotional level as well. Shall I keep talking?
Yes.
So I've kind of made, I'm just going to go through these notes and make sure that I'm covering everything, because I feel like I get verbal diarrhea and then I lose where I'm going. So you all know that the analogy of it takes 22 seconds to reach, when we use an essential oil, it takes 22 seconds to reach our brains, 2 minutes to be found in the bloodstream, and 20 minutes to be present in every cell of our body. Yeah. So again, it's respecting how amazing these oils are and how well they work in our systems. So I've kind of got a few, how do you guys want to run this? Do you want some ideas of how, I mean, I've kind of told you about how I use them, how I choose to use them, but where do you want to go from here with?
Sarah, I reckon some specific tips like through pregnancy. So like what things you would recommend in the early stages for morning sickness, perhaps muscle cramps or sore lower back, and then going through, you know, to the end of pregnancy and then into labor birth.
Okay, cool. So obviously the biggest thing that we talk about in early pregnancy is morning sickness, and I think that it's choosing again innate oils that work for you. So there's kind of a list of them that I would start with, and they would be ginger or cardamom, or together ginger and cardamom, and they're really good because they settle the gut and block the receptor pathways for nausea. So they generally have a pretty good effect on women with morning sickness. The next would be peppermint, and that's because it's so well known for its digestive benefits and is commonly used for nausea or digestive issues. However, if you don't have peppermint, which most of us do, it's in the top 10, but spearmint is another really good one to try, and you'll either like one or the other. Spearmint works the same way as peppermint, but it has a longer lasting effect, so you might choose that one. Lemon's really good, it's refreshing, it reduces liver toxicity. It kind of is a good go-to. And frankincense. Now, my old mate Frank, I use all the time. I used to really not like frankincense, the smell of it, until I kind of learned more about it and learned how amazing it is. But I would use frankincense in probably 90% of the blends that I use with women, not only because it's a really good grounding, amazing oil, but also it amplifies everything that I put it with. So if I'm making a rollerball for morning sickness with those oils I've talked about, then I would add frankincense to kind of boost the effects of those oils as well. So you don't have to use all of those oils, but you can choose the ones that speak to you and put them together in a rollerball and use. And it might be that you need to adjust a little bit. Again, like I say, the dilution can be changed for everybody. The other thing that some people do just go to is Digestive. So some women find that this is really good, other women can't stand it. So, but it is kind of good for many things in pregnancy. So it's good for heartburn, it's good for constipation, that fullness that you feel after eating. So, you know, have that one on hand as well, definitely. The other thing that I want to bring in here is a mineral. Buffy, I don't know how you feel about magnesium in pregnancy, but some reading that I've done, obviously we know that it's really good for muscle cramps through pregnancy, but I did some reading and found that it works really well with morning sickness too. So it can be like a real balance of minerals like you've been talking about.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I haven't specifically used it for that, but it sort of makes sense to me because it's, again, you're not only calming the physical muscles like the musculoskeletal system in terms of our legs, but you're actually also calming down the spasms that might be happening in the stomach as well.
Totally. And the other way of when you think about magnesium, you think tablets, right? But you can actually use it topically, so you can get a really good quality magnesium gel or oil and just put it topically on your skin. So if you're feeling really crap and you can't take tablets, that's another good way to get it into your system. And also with cramping, if you're using it for that reason, you can use it directly on the muscles that are cramping, which is usually legs. The other thing for cramps is deep blue or ice blue and aroma touch, which are both really good for topical relief. But always dilute them. I'm a big believer in diluting oils for pregnancy. A lot of them, they say you can use them neat, but like I say, use them diluted, and you can always, build them up if you need to. Stretch marks. This is another one that people want to avoid at all costs. Personally, I think they're badges of motherhood, and I think we should wear them proudly. But if you are blessed not to have stretch marks, using Celubel or your Beauty Blend, this one, little roller ball, this is amazing for stretch marks. I would recommend, though, this does come undiluted. It comes in a roller ball, if those of you who haven't seen it before. But it is undiluted, so I would dilute this down and use that daily on your belly, once or twice a day if you want to. Smells amazing, works really well. And actually this pops up a couple of times in what I'm going to talk you through. It's really good skin healing on a deep level. The other way to do it if you don't have Celubel is making your own blend, and that would be like lavender, myrrh, frankincense. Cypress is another one that'll pop up a few times, and geranium pops up a few times. Geranium's a really good oil for increasing blood flow to the area that you're using, so that's why you see it a lot in skincare, like facial skincare regimes. Varicose veins and hemorrhoids, these kind of both go together, and this is a hormonal response for a lot of women in pregnancy, to do with relaxing the smooth muscle, which is cell walls, so blood vessel walls. So cypress is the best oil to have on hand for this, and you can make it into a blend. So you can use, or actually going back a step, for varicose veins, I would use cypress oil on a warm compress on the area directly 2 or 3 times a day, and that will give relief for that heaviness, burning, itchiness that you get from varicosities. You can make a hemorrhoid spray, and while women in pregnancy do get hemorrhoids, probably this is more relevant to postnatal, and that would be, after the birth. And that would be cypress, helichrysum, lavender, geranium, and peppermint diluted with fractionated coconut oil. And also you can use it in conjunction with witch hazel, which works as a natural astringent and works really well for that too. I've actually made a spray several times up for women who have had hemorrhoids after the birth, and they have had the best results with this, far superior to any ultra-proct or medication that you can get from a pharmacy. So it is amazing stuff, very powerful.
Sorry, Sarah, can you just repeat what was in that?
Oh, so sure. In the hemorrhoid spray?
Yeah.
Cypress, helichrysum, lavender, geranium, and peppermint.
Cool, thank you.
And you would use it 3 times a day, particularly after a bowel movement. Yeah. Baby's position. So if we're wanting to encourage baby to turn from a posterior position, you can do some lower back massages, or partners, support people can do a lower back massage with peppermint and myrrh in slow circular motions, and do that 2 to 3 times a day. You can also do that in labor as well, and that will help turn a baby that's posterior. I'm a big believer in acupressure as well, so I do a lot of acupressure and will use oils directly on acupressure points, particularly with women in labor. So that's another aspect of my practice, but I feel like that's a whole nother conversation. Do I keep going? Are you all with me?
Yeah.
Cool. So the next thing is sleep. So alongside morning sickness and cramps, sleep would be the next thing that I get asked a lot about. So I feel like sleep is really individual to the person. It's not about, it's about why you're not sleeping. So is it hormonal? Is it discomfort? Is it just that you cannot get yourself into sleep? Is it stress? Is it environmental? Is it diet? So I feel like it's really individual. And lavender, kind of, when we're talking about essential oils, lavender is kind of like the go-to, right? That's the first thing you think of when you think sleep. Yeah. Lavender can have the opposite effect for some people. And I've found that personally, and I've found that with people that I know and that I've offered lavender to, that like it does nothing for me, or it makes me feel more wired. So I find, again, talking about the dim light, lavender piece is amazing. So you're bringing in other oils, and lavender's still there, but it's on a lower level. So lavender piece would definitely be my go-to for that. And actually, after a really busy night, working all night with a woman in labour, the first thing I do is come home and put lavender piece in my diffuser, and I sleep like a baby. Not that babies sleep that well, Han. But yes, that's my first go-to. Otherwise, you can try oils like Roman chamomile, bergamot, frankincense, and put that on the bottom of your feet or the back of your neck. Or you can use lavender piece and balance, or vetiver and juniper berry are really good as well. I'm not a big advocate, I might get shot for saying this, but using them internally through pregnancy, I don't think that that's a good idea. I think using them topically and aromatically are going to have the same benefits, if not better benefits, through your pregnancy. And that, I guess, comes down to my experience and my willingness to share this information with people and stand behind it. Yeah. So labour and birth. So there's a number of oils that I take to my birth with me. This is my little birth kit of oils that's with me at all times. And it has several little things with my little coconut oil. These go everywhere with me. They go to clinic, they go to postnatals, they go to labour and birth. So everybody gets to try them if they're open. I've not yet met a person that doesn't want to try essential oils. They're all like totally into it. So there's a number of them that I take with me, and I do have some go-tos. There's others, like I say, that I'll use for some people and not for others. I kind of was talking to Buffy about this the other day. Hey, Buffy, about how I can talk to you about what works and what I would take and what I would do, but actually it comes down to the vibe of the room and what the woman actually needs. So I'm like a little walking chemist, right? So I can go in and say, how are you feeling at the moment? Or she's telling me how she's feeling and what's happening with her labour. And, you know, a lot of midwifery is facilitating a birth. You're not like in their space all the time. You're kind of sitting back and watching, and how does the room feel? How is she acting? How's her husband reacting to the situation? How's her mum reacting to the situation? And then introducing oils on that basis. So although I have my go-tos, I change it up all the time. It's about how the situation is unfolding. So things in my birth kit would be, so black pepper is one, and that's really good for a back labour, not necessarily a posterior baby, but just women that labour in their back. It gives good pain relief, and basil's really good for this too. So basil's good for that transitional phase where you're nearly fully dilated and you're like, I just can't do it anymore. I want to go home. I don't want to be here. Basil's really good to kind of get you through that stage. And again, this is where you can get their support crew to use these oils for massage. I always have a diffuser going, but getting their support crew involved in using pressure points and back massage and incorporating oils is amazing and works really well. Here's geranium again popping up. So this is increasing your circulation and use for massage on areas of tension. So one thing I see women do in labour is this, through contraction. So it's about massaging shoulders, massaging their hands, reducing tension in their body, and geranium does a really good job at that. Balance is really good. People who feel really unearthed in labour or really out of control, balance kind of brings everybody back down again with support people too. So I will put this on, massage this on the bottoms of women's feet, and that is helping emotionally with encouragement, that sense of grounding, a sense of strength, and building their confidence. That's definitely something that I use a lot in labour. Sometimes I'll even put them on a little gauze swab and just have it on wherever they are, on the bed, standing beside the bed on a Swiss ball, whatever. Put it, kind of tuck it somewhere so it's not right in their face, but they're kind of able to inhale that and use that aromatically. Lavender is kind of a go-to. Definitely take this with me, and that's because it's calming and soothing. And I will put this in the pool. If they're birthing in a birthing pool, I'll put that in the water so they're bathing in it and getting the aromatic benefit as well. Wild orange is really good. Any citrus oils actually are really good uplifting, and good work really well with balance. Peppermint's good, lifts energy. It's really cooling on the skin. People who are working really hard in labour, it's beautiful to have that cooling aspect on your skin. Also reduces anxiety. So that's another, if somebody's not coping and feeling really stressed, and you can use some peppermint to help reduce that anxiety. And then obviously there's clary sage. So clary sage is not from my experience, I'm sorry if you're doing, or if they've had like whole
Sarah,
like a
can you hear
day
me?
of like early labor and then not quite established, then I would use, and that 2 labors I've been over the weekend, we've used Clary Sage. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you cut out a little bit right on the trigger point topic of Clary Sage and whether
What did you hear?
and whether it's going to cause miscarriage. Can you just give us a summary of just what you said on Clary Sage, so that not that it starts labor, that it can strengthen contractions once it's started, but only if the body's ready, type thing.
That's right. Yeah. And I was saying that the last 2 labors I've been to, I've actually used Clary Sage for both of them. They labored very similar, so kind of got to a point in their labor and then their body was like, oh, I'm really tired, I just need a break. So along with other things, we used Clary Sage, and that ramped those contractions back up again, and we got there without any intervention. I actually had a do you want to hear a story? I can tell you a really good story about this.
Yeah, story's on.
Yeah.
Story time. So I had a woman in labor, actually it was about 18 months ago, and she spontaneously went into labor. So she went into labor without intervention, and then we got to about 7 centimeters, and then her labor pretty much stopped, went down to like really infrequent contractions. And when I go into the hospital, I'm kind of known as like the witch midwife, because I smell amazing and take in these amazing oils and really believe in them, and I'm kind of got that name. And I went out and spoke to the specialist and said, this is the situation. Now, I know that you want me to give her medication to get her labor going again, but I want to do an experiment with you. I'm going to go in there with my essential oils, and if I can make her labor pick back up again using nothing but essential oils and acupressure, I want you to let me do a trial in the hospital of using essential oils. So he was like, whatever, that's not going to work, but sure, go for it. He agreed to it reluctantly. So I walked back down to my room and used essential oils, and that baby was born 40 minutes later. Went from having very few contractions to really good contractions, and had a baby without any intervention. So I'm yet to hold that doctor to task, because I know he knows I'm coming for him, but it was such an amazing illustration, and I see these amazing effects of these oils, and this is why I integrate them into my practice so much, because they 110% work. Like, it's unbelievable. So I feel really strongly about them, if you can't tell. Anyway.
And Sarah, this is awesome, and we've got some recent experience with Hannah just having a baby last week. She was saying that she also used Copaiba as in addition to the ice blue rub, that it's really good for pain. So 3 drops under the tongue.
Yes.
Copaiba, and also started using Clary Sage sort of around that 39-week mark, and said she felt that. And you can only know intuitively when you do it yourself, right? Because it's like, I have so many women say, oh, but I've read that this isn't safe, and I've read that we can't do this, and I've read that this, and at the end of it, I say, look, you can read whatever you like, and I can tell you what I think, but at the end of the day, you need to do intuitively what you feel most comfortable with. Because if you're putting Clary Sage on your abdomen at 38 weeks and feeling ridiculously stressed about that, then it's best you don't do it, because the stress levels in themselves are going to cause your uterus to hold tight and not to let that labor flow naturally. So
and remember that we're wanting balance in pregnancy, not change.
Yeah.
So sometimes your body can be like, I'm nearly there, and we do something and it kind of tips you over the edge, right? So Clary Sage is a good hormone balancer, so that may have been part of tipping the scales and starting labor.
Yeah, watch out, Sarah. You're going to have a whole lot of ladies wanting to come down and
I think that works really well.
Oh, we're delayed. You'll need to travel down to the Mount if you want to have your baby with Sarah. But it would be worth it.
I'm not an aromatherapist. I've done, yes, I have a health, like I'm a midwife, I have a qualification, so I understand how things work, but a lot of this comes from personal experience and my own research. So, like I confidently use them. It's not something, that I've just gone, hey, just throw this in the bucket and see how it works kind of thing. It's lots of experience and lots of trial and error. And when I say error, meaning it hasn't worked the way that I'd hope it was, I've never had any negative results from using essential oils in pregnancy and labour and birth. So the other thing I would use with clary sage is myrrh, and myrrh works really well, particularly those labours that have completely stalled. So I would add a little bit of that in as well. Clary sage is also good on an emotional level as well, so it reduces anxiety for the woman as well. And I commonly use it in third stage too, and in layman's terms, that's the birth of the placenta. So after the baby's been born, the placenta, we're waiting for the placenta and we don't want to use medication, I'll use clary sage. Or even for after pains, it's really good as well, massaging on your belly using a heat pack. And again, my old mate Frank shows up in this point as well. I use this the most in labour to amplify oils. If I'm using clary sage, I'll usually use frankincense as well. So we've talked about after pains, healing and like making a perineal spray. So if you've had some stitching, or if you've had a small tear, or you're just tender, as most women are down there, then you can make up your own perineal spray. And I would use lavender, frankincense and helichrysum and dilute that with fractionated coconut oil in a spray form, and you can use that as much as you like, really. And again,
how many drops would you put in that spray into how many ml bottle?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I would start small and add to it if you felt like you needed to. So maybe 5 drops of each. It's a really sensitive area, so you don't want to be really gung-ho with it and then be like, oh my gosh, that's way too much. So kind of have a play with it and see how you feel. Some people don't like using fractionated coconut oil as well, because it's quite thick. It's not thick, but like it's not like water. It's not like you can feel like it's something light. So you can use a water or even witch hazel or something like that. You just want to kind of emulsify it first.
Can I just butt in here?
Yes, you may.
This stuff here, I just made this and it is amazing. It's kind of like gel, because I can't remember which proportions, but it's something like half witch hazel, half aloe vera gel. Because I have stitches. So yeah, that, and then I've got frank, geranium, helichrysum, clary sage in there.
Nice.
And it's been amazing. I just spray it onto pads and
yeah, cool. Awesome.
Nice and cooling too.
And aloe vera is amazing, hey? It's a cooling aspect. Nipple trauma is another common thing, and I kind of want to point out here that you can't just use an oil and expect that it's going to go away, or use something that's going to go away. It's actually what's causing that trauma. So don't jump straight to an oil. Talk to your midwife, talk to your support people about the latch, and is the baby latching correctly? Check the baby's mouth, what's anatomy like, and then go ahead and use this healing kind of process, so that you're not healing it and then making the problem worse, and then healing it and then making the problem worse. And those of us that have breastfed with cracked nipples, oh my gosh, it's like toe curling, horrible pain. So you want to make sure that you're managing it well, and the reason behind why you've got that nipple trauma. So I would use, again, this is geranium, lavender, helichrysum, and it's diluted down. So similar to that perineal spray, it's all about skin healing. Perineums and nipples are really vascular, meaning there's a really good blood supply to them. So they heal really quickly if you're using the right things, and you're doing the right things. So breastfeeding and lactation, these are kind of really common oils. Increasing supply is fennel and basil. And I remember, Buffy, when you came down to stay with me last year and you were breastfeeding, and you were worried about, like, you'd had a really busy day and you're worried about supply, and you used both of those oils, and you were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. The next day you were like, seriously, made a difference.
Yeah. And I've had a couple of other ladies, but another one who said she reckoned after she started using them that her milk supply increased 50%. Yeah, so I now have a little roller with basil and fennel, And whenever I kind of feel like, oh, and normally it'll be because of my feeding times are reducing. Like I'm now only feeding probably 4 times a day.
Yeah.
And so it's reducing, and so I will still use that roller, and I just go equal amounts, fennel and basil, 10 drops of each, up to 20 drops of each. Again, just assess it for yourself with fractionated coconut oil, and just applying it around the breast, so not on the nipple, but around the breast. And I just do it. I'm not too, some people say, oh, then you should wipe your breasts clean before your feed. I don't really worry about it. I just will put it on, apply it after a feed. So or before I'm going to bed, not right before the baby's face is going on there, because we don't want the oils in there.
With newborns though, and I think, if you're using this with a newborn, I would say 100% you should wash your breast before you feed, because they feed fairly regularly, and you don't often have the time, for your body to absorb it all. So I would, but that's me, and I'm a big don't ingest them, particularly babies shouldn't ingest them. And it's like any kind of nipple cream that we would use, apart from like a kawa balm or a Pure Land, which is, don't use that. You don't have to take that off, but I would suggest you take oils off. And that's just me personally. Different with an older child.
Yeah, I probably didn't start using it, I don't think, until he was at least 6 months, because the milk supply was fine. Yeah. So back in that early phase, definitely you want to be. I mean, I almost recommend for babies. Well, we'll talk about this soon, but for babies up to 3-6 months, if you don't need to use anything other than water, just use water. Yeah. On their actual skin, on their body.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just had a really good thought and it's completely gone. Let me go back to here.
Breastfeeding, fennel.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. So using oils alone is not going to boost your supply, right? So we know innately that breast milk is produced by supply and demand. So regular feeds, correct latch, unrestricted access to the breast by the baby is going to help boost your supply. These oils are going to support that. They're not going to be like, oh, I've only got enough to feed my baby 3 times a day and I want to be able to do it 6 times a day. I'm just going to use these oils and that'll boost it. It's about that regular unrestricted access, and these are helping support that too. You talk about breastfeeding teas and stuff. They have fennel in them. But if you're using oils, this is like heightened version of that. So reducing your supply, peppermint oil. Now, again, peppermint doesn't reduce lactation for everybody. Some people it will, some people it won't. It's like drinking 1 million cups of peppermint tea. It's not going to stop your milk supply. So I would say for people who are wanting to stop breastfeeding or feeling really engorged, that peppermint could be a good option. But again, follow your body's lead. If you're feeling like you are losing lactation, not working, use a little bit more. The thing with peppermint, like I've mentioned before, is it's really cooling on your skin. So you can use it when you feel when your breasts are really full after, the first few weeks after the baby's born, as a really nice cool compress. So it's not necessarily going to stop your lactation. For some people, it won't do anything, but give that cooling effect. The other thing I want to put in here, Buffy, and I'm sure you're going to agree with that, is anybody that's breastfeeding, actually anybody that's pregnant and breastfeeding shouldn't be having dairy. I really believe strongly in that. I think that anybody who's breastfeeding particularly shouldn't be having dairy. And that is because it's a allergen and it's an animal protein, and you just shouldn't do it. A lot of babies have really unsettled tummies, and most, like 8 times out of 10, if the mother stops having dairy, then their baby settles down. Just a good point to throw in there. Breast infections or blocked ducts, which are really quite common. They can be really common, and more common in women who have dairy in their diets. I always recommend to take 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram of vitamin C hourly through the day to help fight that infection and boost immunity. And use antibiotic type oil. So like oregano, tea tree, clove is another really good one. Really highly diluted, but they are really good. And it's about massaging directly on the area. The other thing I want to point out here is that you don't want to just use that and expect it's going to go away. Again, it's not going to work for everybody. Breast infections, I have seen some nasty ones in my time. If you feel like that you're not getting relief from them, you need to seek medical attention because they can turn bad really quickly. But by all means, particularly blocked ducts, you can use those oils to massage and help alleviate that block. But again, if you're not getting relief, you need to seek medical advice about it because they can get bad. The other thing is that I've thrown in here as well is a homeopathic treatment called Phytolacca in 30C, and that's a really good one for breast infections or blocked ducts. Digestive issues for babies. Lots of people would think that, or we talk a lot about colic and reflux. That was a big one. At the moment, it's kind of tongue ties. There's always like something that's happening with a baby. I think the biggest one that I would suggest would be Digestive, and second to that would be fennel. With babies, I would say way less is more. So I would start with 1 drop of oil and 10 mils of dilution, so 10 mils of fractionated coconut oil, and I would start with baby's feet. If you're not quite getting enough relief with that, I would do gentle massage on their tummy, and you'll probably find that alone works. Fennel is another really good sort of universal oil for babies as well, to help with gripey, unsettled tummies, but again, really diluted. I would go a maximum of 3 drops of combined oils and 10 mils for a newborn baby. I wouldn't go any more than that. And that's because their bodies are super sensitive, their skin's really sensitive, and their body uses them really well. You can make an array of nappy balms, again, with those really healing oils, geranium, lavender, tea tree, all really diluted. Or Celubel again. This is another really good one to use in a nappy balm. Amazing for healing skin. The other thing is being environmentally friendly, and the one thing again that I see a lot of in practice is bottoms that are red raw from using wipes, conventional wipes. So it's like when you blow your nose over and over again, doesn't matter how soft the tissue is, you kind of get really sore. And when it's wet and when it's added, which oil for the skin? Is it this one? Is that the one you're asking, Joy? Celubel. Yeah. I can hear my daughter singing a song on the other side of the wall. It's hilarious. I wish you could hear it.
Take the computer into a room with you.
She'd be horrified. So using homemade baby wipes. And there was a video that I saw ages ago of how to make them. And it's basically getting a roll of paper towels and cutting it in half, so you've got 2 ends with the tube still in the middle, and then getting a container and putting fractionated coconut oil, water, and then lavender, tea tree, and maybe it had geranium in it, maybe just lavender and tea tree because they're both really good healing oils, and then put the end of that roll in the water so it absorbs it up, and then take the cardboard bit out of the middle, and then you've got wipes. Way more environmentally friendly, much nicer on skin, and smells amazing, has good healing properties. So I definitely would suggest that. Who has the link? Do you have that link, Amy? Someone just put up here. Oh, Joe. Yay, Joe. Cool. So I've just got as like a finishing thing here, to using oils with babies needs to be done with caution. Like adults, we all need different dilutions. So starting with the minimum amount and working up and going from there. You don't want to be overusing and then causing problems. So start really small, add to them if you need to or want to, and have a play with them. Like, I don't know, you probably all got resources like the app that we've got. The Droply app is amazing. There's some really good recipes. You can add your recipes in there. I've kind of got like an array of books as well that I use, and you might not go for the first oil. It might be the second or the third or the fourth one that works really well for you or your baby, but just use with caution. Definitely would avoid all hot oils on babies. So no oregano or clove or anything like that for I'm talking newborns, and that's kind of my realm is up to 6 weeks. So yeah, that's probably my spiel.
Perfect. Sarah, I was just going to say on the baby wipes, yeah, I just have kind of a selection of maybe 10 white little square cotton cloths.
Yeah.
And unless we're traveling, if we're traveling, we use those water wipes, but if we're at home, we just use the white square cotton cloths. And I always just have like a little kind of container of water beside the change table and just use water. And then I will have a little bottom balm, or even you can just make a little spray with fractionated coconut oil and like the oils that you've said, you know, just very, very diluted, like 1 drop of lavender, helichrysum, tea tree.
The other thing about balms as well, like making a little balm in a bottle, like a little pot, is don't dig your fingers in every time. So when you're changing your baby's nappy, dig your fingers in, put it on, and then next time dig your fingers in, put it on, because you're actually putting bacteria back in there. So I would use, like, a spray is a really good idea because you're not actually contaminating the product that you've made. So, or you can use like a cotton tip or something like that, and put it on with that, rather than put it on and then wipe it with your fingers, but don't put your fingers back in the same pot.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I've got like the brown spray bottles by the nappy changing station, and it's just water at the moment, so I can use that to clean them up. But is there merit in having just fractionated coconut oil in a spray bottle, so like you can kind of clean with oil?
Yeah, absolutely. And you might even find that it helps, like it's easier to clean them with that. Yeah. But I just wouldn't put oils in water though for a baby. But you'd know that anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not really using any oils directly on him, just for me at the moment.
Yeah, cool.
Torrin now actually picks up the little brown spray bottle with the oil and puts it down by his little man bits and tries to spray it on while he's on the change table. Yeah. Knows the routine. That's awesome, Sarah. I just wanted to, there was a couple of other things just as your baby gets a little bit older, only a couple of other things that I had in my notes to add, which is really the next big common question that I often get is about babies with teething. So I recommend making up a roller ball, you know, just in your little 10 ml roller with lavender, frankincense, and then if you've got them, Roman chamomile and Siberian fir are really, really good. So again, you could just start with 1 drop of each, and you could increase it, you know, to maybe sort of 2-3 drops of each, and then applying that roller to them around here and around the jawline. So on the sort of the top of the cheek and around the jawline, and just massage that in. And I mean, I find when I put that on Torrin now, and he's 18 months, but when I put that on him, it's like he almost instantly just relaxes. There'll be the power of the healing power of touch as well happening there, but his whole face kind of goes, oh, that feels so soothing and good. So that's a really good one on hand, because you'll have that teething thing sort of starts with the first teeth, but then it actually carries on for quite some time. And I'll just see if I've had anything else in my notes. Some of the other things that can be really handy for little ones, especially right now and over winter, is respiratory support. So if they do get a little bit of a, you know, and in these first few months, if they do get a bit of a cough or a cold, they don't have the ability to breathe really easily and clearly, and they certainly don't have the ability to blow out mucus or snot from the nose. So using things like Easy Air, tea tree, and lemon, either again in a roller with just 1 drop of each, or actually my preference is diffuser. So where possible with infants and newborns, if I can use a diffuser based solution before putting something on their actual body, then I'd always go for that first. So a drop or 2 drops of Easy Air, lemon, and tea tree in the diffuser, and that can help them to breathe easily. And the same thing, you can do the same thing around sleep as well. So using things like your lavender, frankincense, Roman chamomile. Lavender and Roman chamomile are probably my 2 favorite oils for infants and newborns, because they are just so gentle on the skin. So you kind of can't go wrong with those 2. And they're really, they're calming for their nervous system, but also soothing for the skin. So if you've got like red rashes or that type of thing. That's pretty much it. So ladies, we Copaiba, Amy, what are you? Copaiba Gentle Oil too. It is a gentle. I haven't personally used it for infants and babies. Mainly lavender and Roman chamomile, and then frankincense, and then a little bit of tea tree, and that's and then a few in the diffuser in terms of respiratory support.
For teething, Siberian fir and Copaiba is like.
Oh, yeah, Copaiba. Yeah, that makes sense. So you could use Lav, Frank, Siberian fir, Copaiba. Yeah, Siberian fir is kind of like an analgesic. It reduces pain, but Copaiba is the exact same. That's awesome.
For the sleep stuff, could you make like a linen spray with the lavender and Roman chamomile and spray that on a baby's, make a real diluted one and spray that on baby's wrap or anything like that to help with kind of that?
Yeah, I have never done that personally, but I've heard of other mums doing that, and that's a great point. So actually spraying it on the bed linen or on the wrap. So again, you're not putting stuff directly on their skin.
I've made exactly that, and it's so nice to get that. It's just like real gentle and really mild, but it kind of just cuts that milky smell that kind of pervades everything.
The other thing as well,
like that for a long time.
remember not to diffuse oils in the baby's room really strongly. So what we would use, like 6 drops, you probably like go back to real basic if you're going to diffuse. And even then I probably wouldn't for a really little baby. I would suggest just holding fire on that unless it's really needed. You don't want to put like stuff in there because it works really well for you, and I love going to sleep with lavender piece on, I'm going to do that for my baby too. Don't kind of fall into that habit of thinking they need that. Use it, think of it like again, you're wanting balance, not change, so you don't want to do things that aren't necessary.
Yeah. And exactly, and using them like they are a medicine, because they are a medicine. So you wouldn't give a baby Panadol unless they really, really needed it. So unless they really had a cold, a flu, a major fever, that type of thing. So with little ones, in terms of especially topically, I'm like water first, and as little as possible. So using that approach, less is more for sure with babies.
Yeah.
Amazing, ladies. Well, I'll just open it up for some questions. Hopefully you found that really helpful. I love listening to Sarah. I mean, her and I have had so many chats already around pregnancy and babies and oils in general. And even then, I really, really enjoyed listening to you just now, Sarah, and picked up so many tips and new ideas myself. And you speak so naturally to this topic because you practice this stuff. You practice what you preach all the time with your ladies and your clients. So it's just such a treat to be able to have you here speaking to these women. And I know there'll be lots of other ladies that couldn't come and listen to the live, but will be really, really keen to listen in and learn from you. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And Ames, can you open up the floor to unmute everyone in case anyone wants to ask questions?
Yeah, thanks so much, Sarah and Buffy. That was so amazing. Now, also, if anybody doesn't have any oils yet, it would be great for you to contact the person that invited you along to this chat and ask them to help you set up a wholesale account. That's the best way to go about it. But if anybody has any questions now, that would be great. So can we just I'll just unmute everybody. And yeah, if anybody has any comments or questions or anything like that, that would be awesome. You can mute yourself again if you've got noisy kids or whatever.
I've got a question, Sarah. Sorry.
Sure. Go, Lana.
Do you what about around like the baby's cord? Have you had anything? Because I know some mums are like, how do we clean their cord and what do we do if it's infected?
I actually wouldn't recommend anything around a cord, and that's because our bodies deal with that perfectly by themselves. I mean, in my years of practice, I've never seen an infection. I've never seen anything untoward with the cord. I think they just need to be left to do what they're meant to do.
Even if they stink like a dead rat.
They all stink like a dead rat. Yeah. You can put something over it just to make it smell nice. Yeah, they do. I've had plenty of people say, oh my gosh, my baby stinks so much. Yeah. This beautiful baby and it smells like a dead rat. Yeah, no, I wouldn't suggest anything, to be fair.
I suppose if you're putting stuff on it when you don't need it, you're also introducing moisture to the area, and the idea of the cord falling off is that it needs to dry out, so you're kind of contradicting the body's natural ability to deal with it.
Yeah, in a way. But also, you know, when you see cords fall off, they're pretty moist. They do. There's a lot of moisture and a lot of kind of oozing, and that's just part of that separation process. Sorry to be gross, but they literally rot off, Hannah. That's kind of how it works. You know, it's like gangrene almost. There's no point in interrupting that process unless you really have to.
Who else has got questions now that you've made us feel sick?
Is it lunchtime?
Really cute otherwise, just that belly button's like, oh.
What stages is everybody in? Who's trying to get pregnant? Who's having a baby? Who's pregnant? Who's got babies?
6 days old. Oh, 7 days old.
Yeah, so we've got, all right, 7 days old, Gemma. Gemma, do you want to unmute yourself? Introduce us to your little bubba.
Hi. She is 5 weeks old now.
So nice to see you. So nice to see her as well. And we've got Mira. She's under me. Do we get to see your beautiful face? Mira is currently pregnant. I think maybe 25 weeks now.
Cool.
Mira has gone to the bathroom. But that is me.
She was having trouble listening, hearing now.
And anyone trying for a baby?
Am I allowed to say me?
Amy has too many babies, but she'll be trying till the day she dies, I reckon. Lucky Ron.
I've actually been trying for about a year now and not able to have a baby. So I have been working with lots of like nutrition stuff and, you know, all the things. But it was good to hear about the low immune system, because I hadn't really thought about that part of it yet. So yeah, that was interesting. And I do have already 5 children, so if I can't have another baby, well, I've already put an order in to say that I'll adopt a baby through Liz.
You've got to even up those numbers, Amy. 6 is amazing.
I reckon those
Sarah.
I reckon those 5 kids are acting as a natural contraception.
Oh yeah.
And when you spoke about the stress, I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Like stress, it's not to be underrated. I mean, the unfortunate thing is, it's hard if you're trying to have a baby and you can't, because you see these people just getting pregnant on it from a one-night stand, and you're like, well, how did that? You know, that's so.
Well, that's been me once, so I've done that.
But in saying that, the woman's hormone system, endocrine system, is just such a delicate beast, and like sleep and stress are just such a big one. You know, it's like the old story that is really, really true of women are trying to get pregnant, they're doing IVF, they're doing all sorts of fertility treatments, and then when they give up and go, you know what, it's not going to happen for me, boom, they get pregnant. Because and literally the only difference is that they lost that expectation, you know, that sort of desire to control things. And we're in this current day and age, we're so used to going, oh, well, I'm gonna work and focus on my career until now, and they're right now I'm ready to have a baby, so it's got to happen. And the female body doesn't work like that. It doesn't like that. So, but stress, also, you're reducing stress and increasing sleep.
Yeah. Also, every month I'm like, should we do it now? Oh, maybe. Do I really want another baby?
Yeah. Well, you do have to have sex, so that is like a critical.
Oh fuck! That's what I'm not doing now. I'm definitely doing that, Buffy.
In the drawer.
Mira said hi. 25 weeks now. That's awesome. And
Rebecca's just a horn bag. She's just telling us all about her sex life.
Rebecca's got five kids and has only had sex 5 times. So there you go. I mean, you know, 100% hit rate.
Like the Virgin Mary, Rebecca.
So are we still recording? I hope not, because
I'll stop recording now. I'll stop the recording.